Ready, Carl?
Carl, we have Carl Fismer, star of stage, screen, and author, recording artist, and all around good guy. Carl, thanks for
Just the way we rehearse it.
take the pen.
I kind of got this dumped on me. John Brandon canceled, and so I volunteered to step. I'm just going to show a bunch of pictures and talk, but the quote that you're reading right now on the screen was made by Arthur C. Clarke, Sir Arthur C. Clarke, most famous for the book and the movie 2001 Space Odyssey. How many people here saw that movie? Oh, good. Well, then you're going to understand what I'm about to say. I got to be associated with Sir Arthur for 16 years. He lived in Sri Lanka. I got to fly. He invited us over, took a camera crew with me, and of course, everybody asked him about 2001 Space Odyssey. So he hated talking about it because that's the whole thing. But he was nominated for an Academy Award for that. So he flew to Los Angeles, and as he's going through immigration, the immigration officer said, "I'm not letting you in until you explain the ending to that." And I guess I didn't understand it. I guess Dave kept getting younger and younger, but. So anyway, I'm just going to talk about how I got going into business and things that happened to me. I never thought of myself as one of the old timers, but I did a talk over at the Texas Treasure Show, and God put his hand up and he said, Captain Fizz, you know, you're just about the last of the old timers. And I said, well, thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it. And then just this last year, John Brandon come up to me and he said, you know this guy on the fleet here, you're older than me. I said, shut your mouth. Anyhow, I started, in fact, I guess I was one of the last to get going with Art McKee. Through the 70s, I was on the City of Sarasota Fire Department. But you know, when you're on the fire department, you're 24 on, 48 off. If you trade a shift, you work 2 days, then you're off 5. I did that every month for 9 years, and driving from Sarasota, trailing my boat down to the Keys. Before then, I was trying treasure hunting up in Sarasota for 6 years. I wasn't doing any good at all. And so I said, well, I'm going to drive down to the Keys. I'm going to force myself on Art McKee, and that's what I did. But anyhow, I moved to the Keys full time, late 70s, and Art McKee was coaching Ronnie Nelson and myself. Unfortunately, his health was bad at this time, but I did get to spend a lot of time with Art. And while he was in the hospital in Homestead, this was in the summer of 1980, June, I believe. We called him up every day. He'd say, well, what are you doing on the, where'd you go? You know, the big grass patch off to the south. And he had another place called the Black Ledge that he showed us, which was about 2 miles away, but sure enough, we metal detected in there, got a lot of hits, and opened it up, and a lot of the upper decking from the Capitana 1733 is buried in there. Well, I called Art up every day at the hospital, and I said, Art, guess what? The Keys newspaper is calling you the father of modern day treasure hunting. He said, well, that's good as long as they don't call me the grandfather. So go on with the next picture, please. Thank you. That is Ed Link built, to my knowledge, the first 2 underwater metal detectors. This is one of them that Art McKee was using. In fact, Ed Link actually dove with Art McKee and Dr. Mendel Peterson, who was shipwreck curator for the Smithsonian. This was in the about 1954, they were using these. I have the other one. I have the second metal detector that Ed Link built. Jack Haskins had it. In fact, I think the one in the picture here was number 2, and the one on the table was the first one. I started with one of those Korean War 40-pound backpacks. Now, you couldn't submerge them, but you can get the heads wet. And I waded around every island and every bay from down the Gulf Coast. I have a great beer can collection as well, like Casey's got. The absolute best. If those beer cans were worth 10 cents a piece, I could be retired. So the one laying on the table, I can tell it has Korean War stuff written all over it, which is what Ed Link started with. But he's more famous for the Link trainer, running 1 million pilots through, and he got credit for shortening World War II. Down at Fort Pierce, there's a big Ed Link. What's the name of that school there, Jim?
Harbor Branch?
Yeah, at Harbor Branch. I just got a call from the lady yesterday. I tried to donate this machine to Harbor Branch, and because they've got, Link used to own that property, and they got a lot of the deep diving things. His son was killed in the 1950s or 60s in one of those deep divers. But I tried to donate that for their Ed Link collection. They were afraid to take it. And I'm saying, here, you can have it. I'm donating it to just, you put my name on, donated by Captain Fizz. But they're afraid to take it because, as in bureaucracy, they thought I was going to try to get a $100,000 tax deduction on it. And I said, no, I'll sell it to you for $5. And she said, oh, no, we can't do it. I said, well, when I drive away, I'll leave it in the parking lot. And she said, oh, no, don't do that. So here it is if you want to see the first.
I'll take it.
Well, now that you've embarrassed me, I give it to you, Taffy, you know that. But anyhow, she called me, and she wants me to call her back about it now. Maybe they've reconsidered. Go ahead. That was when they were bringing in the guns off of the Capitana. Go ahead. Wow. Jack was also involved in that. That's Jack right there as a young man, if you can believe it. I never thought of him as young. He was always an old guy. He was the old guy. The good news for me was I got to work with Jack for 32 years, and that was the fastest 32 years of my life. But originally, he worked with D.L. Cheney on the research vessel Wasp, which we'll see a picture of in a minute. And D.L. Cheney actually is the one that invited me to work with him. And Jack didn't like me very much. In fact, his motto was, don't educate them, you're only training the competition. Well, I spent 32 years, I made him eat those words. Go ahead. That is D.L. Cheney and Jack Haskins on the deck of the old RV Wasp. They brought that anchor in and put it in the canal behind D.L.'s house for a hurricane anchor. Go ahead. That is the archive of the Indies in Seville, Spain. That's where all the records were kept, are kept still. 300 years of Spanish shipping. And Jack Haskins went there many times. Hang on a minute.
That's right there.
The picture on the cover of the book, this book just came out, just released. That's Jack and a bunch of legajos in front of him there. So many trips, and you told me once, but I forgot, but amazing. People would pay him to go over there for 2 weeks and research just a particular king or a particular period of time. But while he was doing that, in the 2 weeks over there, he had the people working in the archives microfiche thousands of documents. Go ahead. Jack's best thing was finding this on the Capitana of the 1733 fleet. Mendel Peterson flew down from the Smithsonian just to look at this. He called it a monstrance. He wrote a paper up for it and declared it the most unique piece to be recovered on the 1733 fleet, and did an appraisal at $250,000. It's now in a private collection out in California. Go ahead. That is the El Infante. As you know, Mark Littleton, Bradley Williamson, and myself, we have a little business called Scuba Wise, and we take people out and let them dive on the El Infante. Go ahead. That Capitana, Tom, you showing me that?
That's it.
Yeah. I don't think that's the same board you got sticking up, but this is the 1733 Capitana. That's a white PI 3000 there. As you all know, your basic handheld metal detector is the best thing you've got in this business. Sometimes you don't even need a boat or anything else. It's a metal detector right off the beach. I prefer the J.W. Fisher Pulsate X. Ace was mentioning that early on. The reason I like it best, a lot of people say, what's the best metal detector? Well, the answer to that is they're all pretty good, or they wouldn't be in business. They've all got something going for them. I just happen to like this one. It has a meter on it, so I don't use a phone, I don't use a headphone. If visibility is horrible, well then I'll use a bone phone. But if you're only using that meter, you have to concentrate on it. You know, when I'm diving, I've had a lot of aquapulses too, and like Ace said earlier, some of them were butt-kicking machines and some were not. I don't know why they're different. But as long as I can see that meter, I know I'm seeing the whole machine, and I've got the head on the bottom and it's going where I want it to go, and even if it quivers a little bit. But when you're just bone phoning or head phoning, because I've looked around and seen guys, you know, looking around like this, and they're going like that, and the head's this far off the bottom, he ain't really metal detecting. So anyway, it forces you to concentrate. I found thousands of coins with the Pulsate X. Go ahead. That's one of the timbers that that's on the 1733 fleet. That's the San Fernando. Go ahead. Now what's a plug for the business, Mark? Anyhow, lots of divers that were just telling me, boy, that's on my bucket list to dive on Spanish galleon. So we're now taking them out on the El Infante in a bounce spot on the San Jose 1733. I probably dove a couple of hundred times on this sites, and I never thought somebody will give me money to bring them out here.
They take good money to go out there.
Yeah, that's one of the big guns, 12-foot cannon off the San Jose, and landed on a coral head in the firing position. My opinion, and lots of people that we've taken out there, that's the best photo up in the ocean. Go ahead, Mark. And here was a bunch of divers. That one's fairly recent.
That was this past summer.
Yeah, okay. That's in the History of Diving Museum. We'll be teaching class in there on Monday. If anybody's in the Keys, come on by. That's the old Proton 3 magnetometer. We use them quite a bit. I did a survey once with one of these off Padre Island, and we actually did good. Of course, it's still legal in Texas. You think Florida's bad, and it is. Texas ain't much better. Go ahead. This is the latest technology from a company called Nova Ray. I've known these guys for over 30 years, and they've constantly worked on improving this machine for survey work. John Brandon gave me okay to go ahead and let them do some work on Douglas Beach. And they've got a lot of hits, but we haven't checked them yet. Next summer, I've got that on our list. Oh, go ahead. Another thing we do, we pull cameras around a lot. This was in the Gulf of Mexico. We have good research on a 1792 ship, and we found pieces of it, but the camera showed us this picture, and I said, oh my God, do you know what that is? So next day we go right back out there, and I jump in the water, and I start brushing it off, and it said, Sears Die Hard. It fooled me, but what would you think if you saw that come out? Yeah. That's a chain plate that's off the San Josef down in Panama. That's a big, long story. I'm the only one that's been involved in that thing since day one. We were on that site in '88 and '89, and there's a lot to say about it. A lot to say about it. Go ahead. Looky here. That's a dead-eye, another chain plate attached to the side of the ship. The lines run through it. Now, this is the one we're chasing in the Gulf of Mexico and finding pieces. And the best thing I can tell you about any wreck, and the best thing I can tell you is it's way outside state lines. But I know there's going to be a fight over it anyway if we actually do find something. Those are elephant ivory tusks. Go ahead. This looks like a cannon to me right here, which I believe it is, and everybody looks at it does. Blends in good, that's okay. You went past the RV Wasp, there it is. D.L. Cheney and I worked on that boat. Unfortunately, D.L. died in '82, so I only got to spend 2.5 years with him. That boat paid for itself 200 times. We had it in the Bahamas a lot. I had it, as a matter of fact, in 1996, Hurricane Lily took it, and what's left over is on the rocky shoreline of the island of Great Anagua. But what a way for a treasure boat to go out. That was named for the aircraft carrier, the Wasp, World War II. The blower I brought back with me, it's sitting at my house down in the Keys. We'll see a picture of that in a minute. If anybody's looking for a nice fiberglass blower, it's still in good shape. Go ahead. We're working the Pandion now. Bradley Williamson and Mark and myself are three-way owners on it, and we'll have it all shaped up and ready to go by next season.
A little history on it.
Yeah, a heck of a history. I think Bob Weller got credit for about over $7 million worth of stuff coming over the transom. I got to go out a couple of times over the years. And here again, he was, one of the best. Somewhere I have a picture of him and Jack Haskins in here on the Angustia site, 1733. They were both young guys. World War II came along. They both lied about their age to get into the Navy. Jack was only 15 years old when he lied about his age, and they took him on his 16th birthday. Navy, and Bob Weller was in the UDT World War II in Korea. Shot out of a torpedo with the surfboard to recon the troop movements in North Korea. This got stuck because of the tides and the wind, and was had to lay down on it by 10,000 Chinese troops marching past him, which, I did. Patriots, one of my favorite things. But he used to date Marilyn Monroe too. That's why I hated it. That's in the Riomar site, hookah rigs. I found out the hard way because as you get older and older, but tanks are great. When we're exploring, okay, yeah, we're using tanks, but when you find a hot area where you're going to run a blower, hookah is dive all day on $1 worth of gas, and then you don't have to carry the tanks in. When I first started working with EL Chain, we had 12 tanks on board, and that's all we had. I had to carry them all the way down the dock at the old Sebastian Inlet Marina, now Captain Hiram's. It was just a big long one sticking out, and we were out on the end. He wouldn't let me use their pushing baskets. Those tanks mess them up. I had to carry them two at a time to the truck, go to the dive shop, take them in, get them pumped up, put them back, take them back to after them guys are out drinking beer. That's okay, I had to get that off my chest. It's been bothering me. It's been bothering me since 1981. That's a Winn-Dixie sack. That's how we used to take them down to Key West to Mel. In fact, I took your dad that very bag of coins. He knew I was coming, and he had some doctor and his wife with him. And I took him, he waved me in. I was going to wait till they got done. And he said, he opened up and said, "What you got, Carl?" And I said, "Well, it's about 308 reals there." And so the doctor's wife started reaching, you know how they get that Nixie black stuff on it. She had a very expensive dress on. Next thing you know, she's wiping her hands on it. And then we talked for a few minutes. I started to leave, and Mel said, "Next week he's going to bring me a bag of gold coins." And I said, "Somebody come in?" I just use that as an example. We pick them up dirty, and then after we clean them up and run them through reverse electrolysis, those are pretty much that hole you see in that Avery. I'm sure everybody knows this anyway. That's the way it came out of the mint. The king didn't care about the shape, but the weight and the purity had to be maintained, and even a little bit of the design. But okay, go ahead. This is on Silver Shoals. That's a bell off of a French salvage ship that was picking on the wreck of the Conception in 1641. Those are sewing needles, trade items and things. They've been under, it's 1733. And in excellent condition. I still got them soaking though, but you could actually run a thread in there and sew it up. I think that's some type of halberd, but the halberds that I've seen the pictures of it all had a point coming out. I found two of these things. They had like a 10-foot long wooden pole, which was just no good at all anymore, but the heads are in excellent condition. There was like the things that the guards at the king's bedroom door stood there holding, like in the old Errol Flynn movies. This was in 1988 when we first went down to work on the San Josef in Panama. That's Duke Long. I'm still in doubt about how Duke met his demise. At the time, there was a lot of bad stuff going on. And I remember Bill was talking earlier about all the name calling. You remember Duke used to get mad, very mad. Anyway, a great artist. The state used some of his artwork in their advertisements, never gave him credit for it. Those are bronze cannonballs. I don't care what you read on the internet about them ones in Ecuador being the first ones or not. These are the first ones. We got 88 of them. We all had a little boat to work in, a little rubber boat with a little outboard engine. And Jack would tell us where to go. So I ran mine out, dropped the anchor, and I started to get my gear on. Then I thought, it's because it's 18 feet deep at low tide. It's 36 feet deep at high tide. So that is a rip snorting current, but it's low tide. And so I thought, I'm just going to snorkel first and see. Jumped in the water, and I'm looking at 88 bronze cannonballs. And I thought, yes, this is going to be great. Anyway, Duke comes driving by that current's running so fast, my boat is anchored but it's stowing awake. And Duke says, turn your motor off. I said, it is off, you dumb butt. Come over here and help me pick up these bronze cannonballs. That's a 80-pound silver bar on the bottom. The ones that got in the bottom down in the rocks would come out pretty good. There were a few sitting up on the rocks, and they were about this thick from all them hundreds of years of that. Go ahead. Yeah, even back then I was using the Fishers, J.W. Fisher. Go ahead. I always stick a metal detector in when I can. I've been good to them, they've been good to me. And in fact, they've been real good to me. That's two other metal detector companies that gave me a lot of money over the years. They're out of business now. I don't know what that had to do with it. Anyway, I guess what I have a problem is everybody's building them. No, this machine's great, it's the best thing. And I said, well, that's nice, but do they give you a deal? Do they help you out? Do they use your name? And I have found that it's the best thing to do if you can get in tight with a good metal detector company, and then you're really spreading the word for them, then they in turn do nice things for you, which I do have a good working arrangement with the J.W. Fisher people. One thing is, they do all free repairs, and that's pretty darn good because a lot of times a wire's loose or something. That's a 7.5-pound silver bar, found it on the beach. It's okay, no markings on it. Go ahead. That was a 10-carat black amethyst ring, came from the Riomar site with DL and me. I think it was in '81, and the governor wanted that. I don't know, Ted, you probably don't remember, but I remember the state saying, oh, the governor wants that. So, of course, they took it. Go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay. We'll just leave that there.
That's Panama.
Yes.
We're sitting right out in front of a whole bunch of tourist boats go there every weekend from Panama City, and they don't know they're right over the main cultural deposit. That wasn't part of it, I don't think. Anyway, until we got the anchor lines out, it wasn't smart to work on weekends right in front of the island. And right across the way, there's the other island, I forget the name of that, but all through there, boy, we're throwing thousands of coins on the deck, thousands, as fast as you can. Everybody's picking them up. Go ahead. This is astrolabe. I guess the lesson on this is, I put together a lot of trips. This was one of them. And Buddy Martin went with me. Go ahead. And Buddy actually found the astrolabe. But there were people in this business saying, because I wrote the story about it for Treasure Magazine. And that was another way. That's how I'm popular, that's how I did it. I wrote a lot of articles for every Treasure magazine going. And I had a good cameraman always going with us. And I said, your job is to take the pictures. And we got on 26 magazine covers. For writing the article, I'd always insist on a cover shot. So that's how you get to be kind of well known. That's, guess who that is? That's Buddy Martin's wife, and she's pretty good at metal detecting as well. She dove with us quite often. And the thing is, when I worked, I had 12 years in with your dad, Jeffy, and he never let me sit on his lap. I made him some money, even. Oh well, go ahead. Those are made out of bronze crosses. They use those to convert the Indians to Christianity. Go ahead. There's a nice, that was a reliquary I got. And it does have some of the 22 karat gold, hand carved rosewood, And if you look right there, there's two little slivers of wood inlaid in them, and that is from the cross of the saint or a martyr 2,000 years ago. And that's the relic for the reliquary. The Romans every once in a while would let the Christians cut a cross up, and you know, that's in the Middle East. There's no trees, there's no forest, and logs were at a premium. They reused those crosses a lot. They just weren't use them once and burn them. Reliquary. Go ahead. There's a nice hand full of gold coins. Those were all Bogota, 2 escudos, and those came from the Rio Mar site. That's Jack Haskins at my kitchen table. This was a division. We were having divisions in February, as I remember. Do we still? Does anybody know? Well, anyway, we got this. This was in February of '84, because that's what we found in '83. Mostly from the cabin site. 1,200 coins. There's another, that picture's in one of my books too. Anyway, that was a good day. This was one I used to say, handheld metal detector's your best thing. That turned out to be a Mexico City 4 real, excellent condition. These are off of the Leocadia down in Ecuador. We got hired to work down there by the richest guy in the country. And when I flew down, his chauffeur drove his car right out onto the runway, and as I'm getting off the plane, he said, "Fitz, come on, jump in, jump in." I said, "I have customs and immigration." He said, don't worry about that." So, I never went through customs and immigration. That's how influential the richest guy in the country is. That's Hogsty Reef. We worked there in the early '90s. That's actually a bunch of junk. We didn't find anything good on that trip. Go ahead. That's picking up a flintlock pistol. Go ahead. Flintlock pistol. Hand-carved wooden handled knives. Those are utility knives as opposed to a weapon. Go ahead. You just don't get these kind of artifacts no more. I've picked up a bunch of them. Those were 2 nice ones, bronze-fitted flintlock pistols, gargoyles, all kinds of decorative. Those pistols belong to somebody of great importance. There's flintlock rifles.
This is all in Ecuador?
Huh?
This is all Ecuador? Ecuador?
Oh, you'd like to know.
I mean, he started out in Ecuador.
Go ahead. The cutlass, the short swords with a curve in them that's good for combat on the deck of a crowded ship. That's a cargo hook, cannonballs. That was another thing, like the magazines, all like the underwater shots. I had a TV show called Treasure Divers. George Lansbury, executive producer. The only thing he insisted on was at least half of the show was filmed underwater. And it's still playing today, like in 13 foreign countries. We wrapped it up, I guess, 10, 11 years ago. Who gets Amazon Prime? Okay, somehow somebody spliced together snippets out of 3 of our TV shows, and it's now running a treasure show starring me on Amazon Prime, but I don't get nothing for it. I called my producer and she said, "They're doing what?" So I think that she's gonna complain to them about it. The name of that is Treasure Lust, L-U-S-T, a word we're all familiar with. Yeah, that is bunch of coins, some pottery. Go ahead, happy days. Anybody recognize this?
You should.
That was taken in the 1960s. That's the cabin site. If you duplicated that picture today, it's all buildings.
In a museum.
Yeah,
For the back.
that's okay. Yeah, we worked at cabin site in 81 for sure with D.L. Cheney, and we're doing good. And in 1982, we were picking up hundreds of coins. That was the first gold to come off with us on the cabin site. There were 3 toothpicks and the coins. And that was the next day. Now, the Marine Patrol drives by every day, mind you. And they knew we were picking up silver coins, hundreds and hundreds. The day after we reported that gold, we get arrested. That's 1982. We get arrested. Judge King writes an emergency 96-page thing saying, leave them alone, and they'll come home wagging their tails. We went to Key West, and there's Mel pointing. Now you think that's a nautical chart. He's pointing to where every bar in Key West is. Jack and I are making notes on that. Dredges, I love dredges. That was the one I was assembling, and it worked. Here's how you work those. If there's any current, you want to face into it. And I had the dredge on my left shoulder because I have the hardening metal detector on my right. And that's another place where that hardening came in handy. You could actually be doing 2 things at once. I had started with Keen Engineering, but their dredges were metal, and that is not good for metal detectors, but that thing is old. I've made that years ago. The only thing I would recommend if you do this, that's a 4-inch exhaust, but a 3-inch pickup. If you use a 4-inch pickup, I found out the hard way, it clogs up with rocks every time, and then you have to beat on it with a 3-pound hammer. But that was perfect. 3-inch pickup, 4-inch exhaust. Go ahead. It was just, that's not beer, that's a soft drink. I'm not kidding. Somebody,
Sure.
yeah, look at it says fizz on it, and somebody brought me a 6-pack of that. I don't drink when I'm diving, but when I'm done diving, I drink a lot. The dredges cause it to be like smoky, because all the sand stirred up. So you always go in the back with your handheld metal detector. We're running 3 dredges down there. This is on the wreck of the Conception. We got them at Keen Engineering with 15-horse Briggs and Stratton, a combination hookah and dredge. Some of the best equipment I've ever used. Go ahead. I got to be in a movie with Lloyd Bridges. We talked a lot about diving, of course, and he signed my picture, "Happy and Safe Diving, Mike Nelson." And I said, you know something? I said, did you ever think about making a movie about Art McKee? You kind of look like you. They're the same size, same hair. And he said, who's Art McKee? And I said, Mike Nelson doesn't know Art McKee. Anyway, it was, yes, I got on Pawn Stars. And here again, you talk about people recognizing you in the street. Anyway, I did 3 segments. Go ahead. We had the Taj Mahal treasure on there I brought back from Sri Lanka when I went to dive with Arthur Clarke. That clump of coins is on display at the Pirate Treasure Museum in St. Augustine. I'll be doing a book signing there on the 30th of this month. Go ahead. That bell, I was over in Bali, and I brought this bell back belonged to a friend of mine, and it was one of the high dollar things. Fleet coin, they called me in to examine a Lime Escudo, and oddly enough, my doctor ended up buying this coin. And I said, that's been all over television, and I think I can sell it and make you some money. He said, oh no, I'm keeping this, it was on television. That was when I got the Lifetime Achievement. The one thing I had to do was tell a Mel story that nobody ever heard before, and then they let me drink. And it just so happened, Art McKee had told me a Mel story that nobody had heard before, so I repeated that. Mel was running the boat, Art was diving, and Art said, all of a sudden the coins are blowing all. He got this, Mel, shut her down, there's coins blowing everywhere. And Mel said, well, are they gold or silver? And Art said, well, they're silver. And Mel said, I'll let it go. That's a true story. Anyway, here we are with Sir Arthur C. Clarke. He invited us. Mendel Peterson had 600 of these coins. He did an advisory job for Arthur Clarke, and I had traded Mendel Peterson out of them, so I contacted Clarke. He said, yeah, come on over. So we went over to Sri Lanka, and we did film a half-hour show, but we wanted to go get enough money and go back and make a 2-hour documentary. Go ahead. And in fact, my cameraman's ear was bleeding, and we were going to make a 100-foot dive here. And I looked and I said, dude, you better not dive today. So that's me doing the filming of Arthur Clarke, metal detecting. Go ahead. It's one of my favorite pictures. He was just sitting there waiting for me to bring the camera down. Go ahead. And then afterwards, we were all sitting on the boat, and Clarke had said, and it was 100 feet. And I said, yes, sir, it sure was. And he said, well, it was beautiful. If I never do another dive, that'll be a good way to go out. Oddly enough, it was his last dive, and I had the honor of filming it. He dove with Cousteau in the late 40s. It was his idea to put the tank in Huntsville to train the astronauts. Also, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have a cell phone in your pocket. He came up with the satellite communication idea. The orbit the satellites travel in is named the Clarke Belt. Now, there's only one blue moonstone mine in the world, and it's in Sri Lanka, but it's flooded 6 months a year, and that was the only way you could get down inside of it. We went down and scrounged up some blue moonstones, and that is a blue moonstone with one of the rupees hung in it. Beautiful, beautiful treasure coin. Stan Waterman, and this is when he was filming the first Conception salvage. And so years later, we're filming the treasure divers story, and I say, well, I've got some buckets of conglomerate stuff still soaking in fresh water. We can bury that and find it again. And she said, well, the people in New York said no reenactments. And I said, my producer, I said, Janet, I said, do you think that Stan Waterman went with them guys for 9 months before they started picking up that, or do you think they put some stuff back for him to film? And she said, oh, yeah. Anyway, this one, when I was getting ready for division on the Conception coins, that was on my kitchen table, and it looked so good. Treasure magazine, go ahead, give me $100 to use it as a cover shot. And why not? I insist on the cover shots if they want the stories. So you could say I'm a paid professional photographer too. That's Stan Waterman, one of the big dive shows, signing his book. I had him sign one of the Conception books for me. Go ahead. Does everybody remember Stan Waterman, Blue Water, White Death in the 60s? Yeah. Anchors. Okay, one of the first things Art McKee told me was never disturb an anchor. He said they get great information. And of course, this one was dropped in distress. They tried to stop, but didn't. And you know, the shank's pointing where the boat went, so you just follow that line, which we did, and sure enough, there was a wreck scattered in the reef. I was doing a talk, that thing hit hard. I was doing a talk at the Venice Dive Club in Florida, and the guy raised his hand, he said, Captain Fish, he said, I found an anchor in the Gulf of Mexico. I said, a big one? He said, yes. I said, can you relocate it? He said, it's in my yard. Go ahead. Here again, your basic handheld metal detector. Hooker rig, go ahead. Hardened metal detector. And I'm telling you, when that thing came out, I'm going to get this one rebuilt. There's no, even today, you know, that thing's 39 years old, and it just needs batteries. And if you're running the blower, that's the only machine you need, because once you start picking stuff up, you back down the engine a little bit, and you just keep turning around. You go, here, one's going to be showing up right here any minute now. Sure enough, there, throw it down your jacket. Well, that's a whole bunch of stuff before we took it to the boat. That's a Danny Porter and a Blue Water Rose on our last trip to Panama, which actually was our last trip to Panama. Big hole, that's Buddy Martin. Remember, Buddy found the astrolabe, and some people were telling me, Carl's not going to give you any credit if he's going to say he found it. No, I can do better than that. Buddy Martin found the astrolabe, but I found Buddy Martin. Here's a blower. Now, it's in good shape. It's fiberglass. It used to be painted white. It's sitting on my dock in the Keys. Anybody that's 30 inches across. Anybody looking in need ones, I'll sell it cheap. Jimmy Janda built that down at Marathon. Lift bags, yeah. I wasn't quite sure what that was. We got it on the boat, and it turned out to be, that was your cue to change.
I got it.
I'm just kidding. Fire bricks, so that was where they did their cooking. Only place on a wooden ship you could have the fire. That's on Hog Sty Reef. I did a lot with handicapped divers. At first it scared me because, you know, they invited me to do a slideshow for them at one of their meetings. And then before I got out of there, they said, we want to go diving with you. And I said, oh, man. But it turns out they were pretty darn good. This is one of them. He's on the El Infante. And as it turns out, you know, them guys got to move slow anyway, so it's ideal metal detecting. One of them actually found a coin. Now, be friends with famous people. And, so far, I haven't got any money out of it, but that's John Chatterton. The good news is, I guess here everybody's read Shadow Divers. It's been bought for a movie. Did anybody here read Shadow Divers? Oh, okay, good, that's fine. Yeah, and I told him, I said, I'll play your part in the movie. He busted out laughing. Go ahead. Here's that picture of that's Commander Bob Weller, who dated Marilyn Monroe, and Jack Haskins. They both entered World War II illegally, I guess, because they lied about their age. Teddy Tucker, in fact, this was, I think that was at the New Orleans DEMA show, and Teddy said he was over there to talk with Mel Fisher because there was more problems going on, and he was volunteering his help. That was our last bunch down in Panama. I shouldn't have went, but I couldn't say no. I had a tumor growing in my spine, and it was just killing me. I couldn't walk. And as a result, a lot of those young guys thought that, you don't know nothing about diving. Maybe I didn't. There's one of my favorite pictures. Well, anyway, Mo, John Brandon, me, and I found Buddy Martin again. We helped to raise money for all kinds of charities. And those are cardboard cutouts. I take them with me a lot, and when I get lonely at night, I get them out. That was the logo for my TV show, Treasure Divers. You can see Treasure Lust on Amazon Prime. It's funny how sometimes I see it underwater too.
Treasure Divers is on YouTube, though. You can find that there.
Oh yeah, YouTube, there's a lot of them on that. Go ahead. We're just about done. Time to sell books. Go ahead. And I've got a bunch of flyers.
There's flyers up at the front door.
Okay. We've come up with a new organization called Preserving the Past. I found what was left of John Ringling's yacht, and there's a lot of valuable stuff on there. The hull came up empty back in 1930, and so we volunteered to pick that stuff up and give it to the Ringling Museum. Didn't want nothing for it, we'll do that. And you're not going to believe this, but the state won't let us. And I didn't tell them where it was. Okay, go ahead.
We're done.
That's it. Thank you for your attention.
Why don't you see if anybody has any questions for you?
Oh. Okay, I have a question. I asked Ace, he didn't know it. What's the capital of South Dakota? No, that was a joke. A guy comes home early from work and catches his wife in the bed, and he says, now I know everything. And the guy in the bed said, what's the capital of South Dakota? Anybody? Now's the time. They may not be here much longer. Okay,
Just, Carl, could you go through what it was that Art told you? You went down there to go get a job?
you read my book.
Oh, yes, best thing I ever read, man.
Thank you. That's a true story. You know, I mentioned earlier I was on the fire department, and I said, I'm going down to the Keys, and I'm going to force myself on Art McKee. So I did. It's in uncharted waters, but it's a good story, and it's a true story. I drove down, I pulled into his driveway, which is right next to the Castle Museum that Art had built in 1949 and 50, and Art's on the riding lawnmower. I knew who he was, so he turns it down, he comes up, and he says, I'm Art McKee. I said, yes, sir, I know who you are. I said, my name's Carl Fismer. I want to be a treasure hunter, and I'm willing to work for free to learn something. And he said, I bet you're a diver. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, what else can you do? And I looked kind of odd. And he said, are you a boat captain? That was before I got a 100-ton license shortly thereafter. And I said, no. He said, mechanical abilities, especially, can you work on small engines? No. He said, you have any medical training? I said, He said, can you cook? That's very important. I said, He said, see what I mean? He said, everybody's a diver. So I got in my car, I drove back to Sarasota. I volunteered to start cooking at Fire Station 1. That's 15 meals 2 times a day. I went to Votech school to learn small engines. I got my 100-ton captain's license. I went through the first paramedic class in South Florida. So it took me 2 years to do it. So I drive back down to the Keys. I pull into Art's driveway. He's riding on a mower again. He comes up and he said, we've met before. I said, yes, sir, I'm Carl Fismer. I want to be a treasure hunter. I'm willing to work for free. He said, I bet you're a diver, right? Yes, sir. He said, what else can you do? I said, I have a 100-ton license. I can work on small engines. I'm a state certified paramedic and I can cook. And he said, we're going to take you next. Unfortunately, he didn't, as the next time turned out to be actually his last treasure hunt, because it was in 1979 when Jack Haskins and Art McKee went to the Genovese. It's out on Pedro Shoals, and even though it's 90 miles offshore, since all the hoop-de-doo over treasure popped up, some country claims ownership of everything in the ocean. There ain't no more international waters. Honduras and Colombia almost went to war. Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos, they both send out gunboats. Dominican's gunboat's bigger, Turks goes home. We own this, that's ours. And all you have to do is give them half of everything. I haven't done too much bitterness, right? I mean, I can do $8 if you want to hear it. So anyhow, that's the story of Art McKee. And Art and I got to be pretty good buddies after that, right up until the day he died.
It's just the best advice you can give people. Because if you can't do anything but dive, you're just like everybody else.
Well,
And that's not what you need on a boat. You don't need divers, you need metal detectors that can dive and fix your crap.
Somebody can pull anchors.
that's right, have other skills, but another thing I've learned is giving credit where credit's due. I don't know, there's been some people that has hogged all the credit for a successful trip. You don't hear about the troops or the guys, or like with Buddy Martin, they were telling him, oh, Carl's going to say he found that. No, I'm going to say I found you. You found that. So the story about the conception in that Treasure magazine, if any of you have it or you read it, I mentioned everybody in that article, and I said something good. Well, there had to be something good that they were contributing other than just going for a boat ride. Everybody had some kind of skill. And I saw to it that they all got recognized when I wrote the story. That might be more important than what else can you do? Because going through Jack's stuff after he died, Ted's, you'd have just never thought, he didn't complain to me, but he made a lot of personal notes, not very nice, about some people. I'm not going to say no more. Any more questions?
So Carl, when you were doing all this, did you work with any trained archaeologists who really appreciated treasure hunters for what they are, their skills? Did you ever work with any archaeologists that would do that with you?
Well, I did. Jim Sinclair, okay, and Duncan Matheson certainly. In fact, I had to get Duncan to agree to be the archaeologist on the John Ringling stuff. It sank in 1930, for crying out loud. Who's your archaeologist? I said, Duncan Matheson. Oh, but they wouldn't let us do it. They wouldn't let us pick it up anyway. I have nothing against the archaeology thing, and I know that it's here to stay. But the reason that word got out, in the Western Hemisphere, we don't have anything of the definition of lost or ancient civilization, which is the dictionary reference for the archaeologists. And God bless them, you go to the Mediterranean, there's yeah, good. But here, all of our wrecks are post-Columbian. We already know everything. And if you don't believe that, come and look at Jack's wrecks. I've got over 200,000 pages of stuff. I think that the word archaeology just keeps coming out because the bureaucrats and the politicians want you to believe, wants the public to believe that we have to have an archaeologist with a diploma. Jack had looked into that, and he said, he told me that most archaeologists, they go to college, they get their diploma. Where are they going to go? There's only so many pyramids. Where are they going? almost 90% of the graduate archaeologists ended up as social workers somehow. And then they're reading in the newspaper about Mel, and they say, well, he doesn't have a diploma. Well, but he knows pretty much what he's doing, because it was Mel, it was Jack, it was Art McKee, Kip Wagner, it was those guys that pioneered this business. They're the ones that came up with all the research, then all the hunting, and they're risking all the money. It's not costing the government a nickel, and they're doing all the preservation. Everything about it is done by the private person. But you got to have an archaeologist. I was down in Cayman Islands trying to get in down there. It ain't gonna happen. But the lawyers that were working with us, a man and wife team, the lady said, well, who's an archaeologist? And I said, do we need one? And then after I explained the whole, she thought, but she had heard the word, and that's what we need. Right. So anyway, they're social workers, and they're reading about us, and they're mad about it. Now, the society archaeologists, even though they were social workers, they have meetings maybe twice a year where they all get together. But back in those days, you could have a guest speaker and pay them an honorarium. They got mostly congressmen. And so they listen to the congressman talking, and after the meeting, they get him aside and say, Congressman, these treasure hunters, they're raping and pillaging, and they're busting, they're ruining it. And that's how the abandoned shipwreck bill started coming around. That abandoned shipwreck bill was proposed 10 times in 12 years and got beat down, didn't pass. The rule in Congress is, if your bill doesn't pass, you can wait 1 year and then bring it back. Well, the last time, I guess it was 1988, it got voted down. And Jack and I were watching that on television. Yes, another year for us. 2 weeks later, Speaker of the House, Jim Wright, who resigned, he said, he took money for something, he said, I'm not a crook, but I'll resign anyway. Oh yeah, sure, Jim, we believe you, Speaker of the House. He said, I found a technicality here where we can actually vote on that again in 2 weeks. There was no technicality. He lied, he forced another round. This time he went around and twisted arms, and that's how we got the Abandoned Shipwreck Act. Never trusted a politician or a bureaucrat. 1988 and 89, we worked in Panama. Noriega, the murderer, the dictator, the drug runner, the horrible criminal. We did a deal with him. Everybody said, oh, they're going to kill you. The State Department said, well, you can't go. Aid to the Enemies Act, 1911. And what the hell is that? And they said, well, Noriega, he's into drugs. And are you just finding that out? We've known it in the Keys for 25 years. But anyhow, through hook and crook, Jack had to give his lease to some Swedish company, and they could hire us to work it. So we really did aid to the enemy. You could always find your way around. Yeah. And so, now here's Noriega, that's the murderer. Every day the drug boat from Colombia went by us. And, hi fellas, and everybody up here said, oh, they're going to kill you and steal the treasure. I said, they're making a lot more money than we are. I don't think they want any bad PR right now. And so at the end of our money, we didn't want to quit. We made 3 piles as per the agreement. Noriega sent a general over, and he don't know nothing. He said to me, he said, which one would you pick? And I honestly said, if I could have one of those, I want that one. He took that one, he went back and took it to Noriega. We came home with the rest of the stuff. The point is, Noriega, the murderer, the drug runner, the dictator, the criminal, he kept his word. Yeah. You won't get that in Tallahassee or Washington. You won't. We should know that by now. I hate to just keep negative crap in here, but it's what I'm full of. With D.L. Cheney, we got arrested. We got arrested in the cabin site in 1982. Judge King put out that, 2 days, he put out a 96-page order we could go back. I was still in the Keys. The DL went out anyway. They came back. They arrested DL, handcuffed him this time. Put him in at 5 minutes to 5 so he couldn't post a bail. It's a third-degree misdemeanor what we're doing. No jail time. Maximum penalty is a $200 fine. But they had to teach him a lesson and put him in jail in handcuffs. He had had 2 open heart surgeries. He had a heart attack in the jail. They're laughing at him because they think he's faking it, trying to get out. Who remembers Gene Evans? Somebody here does. Gene Evans happened to be there. I don't know if he was in jail or what, but he called me up. He said, Fizz, DL's having a heart attack and they're laughing at him. Well, in a period of the next couple of months, he was in the intensive care in 30 days, and then he died. But so I hate them sons of bitches. I always will, and you know, that's just my personal belief. But Jack used to say, Jack called it Haskinism. I have them in the book. Jack said, if you're lucky, every once in a while, you can vote a politician out of office. But bureaucrats are forever like herpes. Any more bitterness?
We better let him go to lunch.
There we go. Okay.